We want to thank you all for tuning in via live stream. For those who are here in the sanctuary, we're excited about the conversation that we're going to have with the Department of Veteran Affairs. We here at Kingdom Fellowship, we take this kind of partnership very, very seriously. This is a way for us to really connect into the community and to a population of people that are often forgotten and people that don't know in many ways some of the great resources and great things that are happening there at VA. So again, I'm Tim Finley. I am the proud pastor of Kingdom Fellowship Christian Life Center. And again, we want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for being a part of this wonderful night. And I hope that you will stay tuned. I hope that you will listen intently because I believe there's going to be some amazing information that's given to you. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Black. All right, he's going to come and he will give us our instructions.
Very good. Thank you, sir. I want to thank, first of all, Pastor Finley for having us here tonight. It's a really good step in collaborating with the community. It's something that we've endeavored to do since really COVID started, all the way back in March of 2020. We were talking before our time here together tonight. We realized when this whole thing began that we can't do it by ourselves, and so we've been looking for opportunities to collaborate. Really appreciate live streaming the event. That makes sure that the information that we're going to share here tonight, the most valuable of which is going to come from the panel of individuals behind me. You'll notice a couple white coats, and this one usually wears a white coat, and so they're all smarter than me. Pay close attention when they start talking. It's going to be some great information regarding the COVID vaccine, which is what we're here really to talk about tonight, to provide some information, to just help grow with comfort, to answer some questions about some of the concerns around the COVID vaccine. Within our market, we have about 42% of our veterans that have been vaccinated, and we want that to grow. This is really a part of our prevention plan. From overwhelming hospitals, there's still potential for surges across the nation, and we want to make sure we do our part getting the vaccinations into the communities to make sure that we can help ensure that doesn't happen here in the Louisville community. And so I'm going to go ahead and we've got a series of slides here that we're going to talk through. So if we could go ahead to the next slide. This is what you see represented here is what was called the Save Lives Act. This is something that it is an act that Congress passed here within the last couple months. It really is a way to help fulfill the mission that VA is all about. So the mission of the VA, in case you have not heard it, is to care for him who is born in the battle, his widow, and his orphan. And that was coined by President Lincoln in his second inaugural address. And I think for a lot of individuals, that idea that it's not only he or she who is born in the battle, but it's the widow and the orphan. And the Save Lives Act, what that did was it allowed us to offer the vaccine even beyond our veteran community, but those caregivers of veterans, and now adolescents of veterans, and anybody basically associated with a veteran. And so it's special to me. It's special, I know, to our staff that in this one opportunity, we really have the chance to go beyond just the veteran community, but to all those that support the veteran community. And that's why we're excited to be here tonight, to partner with this fine group here to bring some valued information as we prepare for vaccination events that are coming up in the community, and certainly want to give more information around Save Lives Act, the vaccine itself, and how we can partner together to bring more vaccinations to the community. And so I believe, if I'm not mistaken, what we have next is a video that has been created by the VA that really helps kind of tell the story about why this is important, why we endeavor to come out into the community and partner together. And so if we could go ahead and move toward that, I will step out of the way, and we'll all take this in together.
You may have heard that people say minorities are more hesitant to get the COVID-19 vaccine, and thought to yourself, well, yeah, there's a good reason for that. And you know what? You'd be right.
My mother lived in an era where most people have heard about the Tuskegee experiment. So there's a lot of hesitancy in the African American community about a generation ahead of me.
It's important for you to hear from VA clinicians of different ethnicities and professions.
Yes, I strongly recommend, the patients to take the vaccine first, because we have a privileged population of patients that have served this country, and they deserve, to be served back.
There's a famous quote, "When America catches a cold, Black America catches the flu." What we do know right now is that minority communities have very high rates of infection, and that's increasing our rates of hospitalization and death.
At least for the Navajo Nation, we've lost so many, right? We've already had to deal with commuting pretty far just to have a job, or just to go grocery shopping, or going to our neighbor's house to use their internet.
With the Asian Pacific, most of the time in a household, mother, grandparents, parents, and then the kids, and then grandkids, they live together. And this elderly, they have lower resistance. Even just a small dose of the virus, they can get really very sick.
Coronavirus is very dangerous, especially in women who are pregnant, and especially in women who are breastfeeding and taking care of young children.
I really see a lot of veterans take the extra measure to take care of themselves. They come to the appointments early. They, walk, exercise. They have daily routines that really geared towards a good quality of life. This vaccine will help our quality of life in the long run.
But I think in the COVID vaccine studies, they made a big effort to include more African Americans. And so there are a higher percentage in these studies, but there's still always room to grow.
There is history that tells us about injustices in the medical profession. There's also the history of vaccines and how they changed the world for the better, many in my lifetime. But there was a time when the fear of these diseases were as normal a part of everyday discussion as COVID-19 is now. It's important to take a step back and realize that we are part of another historic moment, one that we have the ability to impact. And in fact, as veterans, this is nothing new to us. We know all about stepping up for the greater good. I ask you at this time to step up once more for yourself, your family, your neighbors, your country, and literally the world.
Hello again, and welcome to tonight's VA Vaccination Town Hall. I am Dr. Beverly Fry, and I currently serve as the Interim Chief of the Compensation and Pension Department at the Robley Rex VA Medical Center. But what I want to do tonight is I just want to share a little bit more about who I am to personalize this just a little bit for you. I am the granddaughter of a World War II Army veteran. I am the daughter of a service member that served 4 years in the Air Force and 16 years in the United States Army. I am the niece of a Vietnam War veteran, and I am the sister of a current Air Force colonel. And you wonder to yourself, why would I share this? Well, I share this because I want you to understand that I truly understand our mission and our goals, and I truly take pride in our service to you all, and because I want you to know that I truly understand where some of you actually find yourselves at this time and place as it pertains to this pandemic and to the vaccine itself. I understand the hesitancy, and I totally understand the history that undergirds this hesitancy. But we don't forget the Tuskegee experiment. We don't forget the Henrietta Lacks story, and we certainly don't forget what some of you have probably experienced with immunizations required for you to serve this country. But what we do is we acknowledge it so that we are not destined to repeat any of those acts. I, as a physician, I'll share with you, excuse me, that I too was very hesitant. Mr. Black can attest to that. But I was very hesitant about receiving the vaccine initially for a myriad of reasons. But I made it my personal business to educate myself on the virus, its causes, the morbidity and complications, its mortality and death rates, and on the science behind the vaccines that have been developed. And with this information, I made the decision for me and for my immediate family for us all to be vaccinated so that we would have a fighting chance against something that we have never seen or experienced in our lifetimes. So what am I saying to you out there? I'm saying to you tonight that we as the VA, we acknowledge and we own the legitimate erosion of trust between the Black and brown communities and the federal government, but I also understand the science of the medicine, of virology, of treatment of diseases, and the science behind these vaccinations. So therefore, I personally stand before you today because we at the Louisville VA, we want to be transparent in our intentionality for our outreach to you, our veteran communities of color. And tonight, our hopes are that you will hear from our physicians, our pharmacists, community outreach coordinators, and our senior leadership in hopes of helping you to overcome the fears and the hesitancies and to help you take the step toward preserving your health, the lives of you, and your loved ones. So again, I say welcome, and I hope that something will be said tonight to help you take that next step and find something valuable and take the step in this fight against COVID-19. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Mark Burns. I'm a U of L VA physician. I specialize in infectious disease. COVID-19 has been something that has been on the forefront of my radar since day one. Been in the trenches in the fight, and I just want to talk with you just a little bit about COVID-19 in regards to how it has affected our communities, particularly the Black and brown and marginalized communities, and how important it is to get the vaccine. COVID-19 is a real disease, no matter what people may tell you, no matter what you may read on different sites. It is real, and it is a killer. COVID-19 doesn't care what color you are. They don't care how much money you make. They don't care where you're from. It's coming for all of us. And the best thing for us to do is to be armed because we are forewarned. I want to talk a little bit about what we can do, and as far as the vaccines, how helpful they are. First of all, let me just talk a little bit about health equity, and I think that's something that everyone deserves. Everyone deserves the opportunity to be as healthy as possible, and that's what I mean by health equity. With health equity, poor outcomes can be reduced, and health disparities can be prevented. There are some areas that I think need to be highlighted. As the woman said in the beginning of the video, if America catches a cold, Black and brown and marginalized communities, they catch the flu or worse. I want to talk just briefly about some social determinants of health. First of all, these things all kind of come into play, and they're intertwined in our overall health as people. First of all, our neighborhoods. Now, affordable housing and quality housing can actually improve health, because if you look at the opposite of that, someone who can't afford housing or lives in poor quality housing, they're going to be prone to being in crowded areas. Also, they may be in an area where they have unreliable transportation to get where they need to go, doctor's appointments, work, etc. So if we can improve our neighborhoods, and that will actually help us improve access to nutritional sources, It will help hopefully not expose people to environmental pollution. And the other thing you have to be careful about with neighborhoods, in poor neighborhoods, you have many multi-generations of families living together. And how does that relate to COVID-19? Well, what happens is you have older individuals living in the same space as younger individuals. And older individuals, as you know, we get older, our immune system doesn't work as well, and we can be more prone to more deadly diseases. So hopefully, by improving our neighborhoods, improving our health overall, this goes along with hopefully living in affordable housing and better housing, uncrowded. Another area we just want to touch on real briefly, we talk about healthcare in itself and lack of healthcare and how that can be very difficult. Those who have poor healthcare, they may have lack of health insurance. This prevents quality healthcare. It can also limit access to places to actually get good healthcare. So that is actually a barrier in and of itself. There are also some occupational conditions that play into this as well. If you notice, a lot of people in the minority communities, they have what I call frontline jobs. That is, jobs where that involve factories, food production, grocery workers, and even public transportation. Now, that relates to COVID-19 insofar as these jobs are for people who are on the front lines, people who are exposed to the public, people who are more apt to be exposed to disease. With these types of jobs, you can't really work from home. You can't do remote work. You have to be there, and the more you're there, the more you're in front of people in general, the higher the chance you can be exposed and attain coronavirus with COVID-19. Just a couple other things too. Your income levels and wealth. People, unfortunately, again, we talk about minority communities and marginalized communities. They have mounting bills. Poor medical bills are extremely high, and it makes it difficult for them to afford quality things such as care and food. And again, as I said, many may not even have insurance or even money for child care. So all these types of things can make it difficult and make you more prone to be exposed to COVID-19. And then finally, educational levels. People who are unable to obtain higher education, whether it be they are not able to enter college because they maybe didn't finish high school, or they just don't have the opportunity. Being exposed, being in lower educational levels, you're more prone to get more marginalized and poor paying jobs, maybe even unstable jobs. And what happens is they usually don't have good health care, good health insurance, and all that makes it difficult. I think it's really important to try to improve our health care, to attain health equity. The major thing that we all can do is get vaccinated, because at least we will be protected, because so many of us are in bad situations. Getting vaccinated, being protected will help improve your health, not only for just COVID-19, but overall for disease in itself. I do believe that COVID-19 has shown a light on these disparities and shows that really this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many other things that need to be done in these communities to improve health, because you have so many comorbidities, especially high among minority communities: hypertension, diabetes, renal disease, kidney disease. But we can start now with COVID-19 and improving our health from that. And the way we all can do that, the way we all can start, is by getting vaccinated.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Christina White. I'm the chief pharmacist at the VA, and I'm going to talk to you about the vaccines today. The first slide just shows a timeline of when the vaccines were approved. The first one was the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, which came out December 11th, and then a week later, the Moderna emergency use authorization was approved. The Johnson & Johnson product was approved February 27th, and it was April 13th that we actually paused giving the vaccine because of some side effects, which I will talk about in a little bit. But we then resumed use of the Johnson & Johnson product, and it is still in use today. Previous vaccine technology has injected a weakened or inactive virus to trigger antibody production. The Pfizer and the Moderna products actually use new vaccine technology called mRNA vaccines. These vaccines have been studied for decades, but this is the first time they've ever come to market. And that's largely because of the logistical challenges around these vaccines. They require ultra cold storage and they aren't very stable. But the mRNA vaccines, you take a small portion of genetic material and inject it into our body, and then those cells will make a special protein that triggers an immune response. And that teaches our bodies how to make antibodies against coronavirus. These vaccines can be produced faster, which is one reason why they came to market before the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which uses older vaccine technology, which does take longer to produce. All three of these vaccines have undergone phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials. It was just on a faster timeline. And the vaccines are not capable of causing COVID-19, nor do they interfere with our DNA. And before anyone asks, there are also no trackers, no secret things that are going into our bodies. When you compare the vaccines side by side, the Pfizer vaccine is the only one right now that is approved in adolescents, 12 years and older. Both the Moderna and the Janssen products are only approved for those 18 years of age and older, although Moderna has filed for approval, and I do anticipate that that will be approved here shortly. The dosing schedule for the vaccines are a little bit different. Pfizer and Moderna require 2 doses, and it's really important that you get that second dose, even if you do have some side effects, because without that second dose, you only are about 50% effectiveness. The Pfizer product are 2 doses 21 days apart, and the Moderna product is 28 days apart. The Janssen product, though, is 1 shot. So if you're not a big fan of needles, that might be the one for you. The storage, as I mentioned, is very cold storage for the mRNA vaccines, whereas the Janssen product can just be refrigerated. When you look at the efficacy against getting coronavirus with these vaccines, both mRNA vaccines are well over 90%. The Johnson & Johnson product is 66% efficacy against getting the virus. In most cases, that was studied 14 days after that second dose, or the first dose in the case of the Johnson & Johnson product. So you might be looking at this data and wondering, okay, which one's the best? Which one should I go for? And ultimately, it doesn't matter. The best shot is the one that's in your arm. So even though the efficacy against contracting the virus is a little bit different between the 3 products, ultimately, they all prevent hospitalization and death. And that's really our ultimate goal. Even in the Johnson & Johnson study, of those who did get coronavirus, at least 4 weeks after the shot, none of them had to be hospitalized. So even if you get it, you're just going to get very mild disease and not be at risk for hospitalization or death. Side effects are pretty common with all 3 of the vaccines. You're going to experience some pain, redness in your arm for a couple of days, and then you might just kind of feel like you have the flu. Tiredness, headache, nausea, muscle aches. might even have a low-grade fever, but in most cases, these side effects resolve within 1 to 2 days. And just to be clear, the side effects are not a sign that the virus is bad or causing harm to your body. It's actually a good sign. It means your immune system is kicking into gear and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's starting to produce those antibodies against the virus. So the Johnson & Johnson product I mentioned was paused for about 2 weeks when they started noticing that women between the ages of 18 and 49 were experiencing a rare clotting disorder while also having low blood platelets. This occurs at a rate of about 7 per 1 million people vaccinated, so that's a very, very low rate. They did end up saying it's okay to go resume using the product, but they do want people to be aware of some symptoms to watch for. And those are severe persistent headaches, blurred vision, shortness of breath, chest pain, leg swelling, persistent abdominal pain, easy bruising, or tiny, like kind of purplish spots under the skin, which might indicate bleeding. If you experience any of these, you are encouraged to go to the emergency department and get checked out. But again, it's a very rare condition and has only occurred in women between the ages of 18 and 49. I want to talk about some special considerations, some of the kind of common questions that I get from folks. And one is, well, I've already had coronavirus. Do I really need to get vaccinated? The answer is yes. It is still recommended to get the vaccine. Just make sure that you've recovered from your acute illness so you're no longer contagious to anyone that you might be coming in contact with. You do not have to wait any certain amount of time after your coronavirus infection. Although they do believe that natural immunity does last for about 90 days. So if you wanted to wait, you could, but again, you don't have to, and I would recommend that you get it as soon as you recover from your acute illness. If you were treated with monoclonal antibodies, which is an infusion to help you recover from coronavirus faster, you do have to wait for 90 days after receiving one of those infusions, or if you've received convalescent plasma for the treatment of coronavirus. If you have a history of allergic reaction, obviously you should not get the vaccine if you're allergic to any component in the vaccine. But if you have a history of anaphylaxis, which is a severe allergy to something else, like you have an EpiPen for certain foods like peanuts or maybe a pet allergy, it's still okay to get vaccinated, but you will be monitored for 30 minutes after your shot, just in case. Pregnant women are known to have more complications from coronavirus and get more severely ill, so it is recommended that pregnant women get vaccinated. You are definitely encouraged to talk to your OBGYN if you have additional questions about that. And if you do happen to have some pain or low-grade fever after the vaccination, you should treat that with Tylenol. There has been no concern so far with getting vaccinated while breastfeeding as well. It is not a live virus in the vaccine, so there is thought to be no risk to the infant. So what does the future look like? We all would love to have our crystal ball and be able to say when we're going to be done with all of this. But no vaccine is 100% effective. We are definitely getting closer, though, to having herd immunity. Until that time, though, you should continue what I call the 3 W's. Wash your hands, wear a mask when it's recommended, and watch your distance. We don't yet know what the long-term efficacy is of the vaccines, and there is a chance that we may have to get booster shots. They also continue to monitor the variants, how the virus is mutating, and to make sure that the vaccines we have on the market are going to cover those variants. So even though we're not quite there yet, we are getting closer to getting to do all those fun things that we used to enjoy, like going on cruises. So we highly encourage everyone to get vaccinated. And we do have some events coming up where you can get vaccinated. We do have a drive-through vaccine clinic at the Zorn Avenue VA campus on Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons. And we have an event coming up on June 12th at St. Stephen Church on 15th Street. We also have another vaccine clinic coming up on June 18th at the Walmart Shopping Center in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. We have another focus group town hall at the St. Stephen Church in Radcliffe in Hardin County on June 12th. And we have flyers in the back of the room if you would like to pick one up that has all of the times and the locations. You are welcome to call our vaccine call center. That number is on the screen, 502-287-4426, to schedule an appointment at our drive-through clinic. And if you are not yet enrolled in VA care, or if you're a spouse or a caregiver of a veteran, you can call our eligibility office at 502-287-5591, and they'll be able to get you registered in our system so that we can document your vaccine in our medical record. With that, I will open up the floor for questions. Yes, sir.
So I've been, of course, watching NBA playoffs. And NBA playoffs, they're back almost to, seems like full capacity. You're not seeing masks. We've seen other states begin to lift the mask mandate. We're seeing people in restaurants. As a pastor, and I don't want to put pressure on you all, but this is going to be a major moment right now. As a pastor, with a congregation that we see over 60% vaccinated, probably, and that was from maybe a month or so ago, when would you say is the best time to gather with no masks? We're here, we're gathering, we have a mask mandate, so to speak, here, you know, when we're in the sanctuary, but I'm getting more and more people, that question is increasing. When can we come in? We're vaccinated, the majority of us in here are vaccinated. When can we worship with no mask?
Hello, hello.
Thank you. That number actually hasn't been truly determined yet. All the cases are falling, and as you know, the state's mask mandate is going to be lifted, I believe, at the end of this week. I think there's a couple things you have to think about. You have to think about the community spread, that is how much COVID is actually in the community. And then secondly, the more people you get vaccinated, the safer it's going to be. I know we are supposedly on the honor system, and you would think, especially in church, you would be honest about that as well too. So really, you know, if you have not been vaccinated, you still should adhere to the public health mitigating measures. If you're not vaccinated, you're really protected. So I would say, again, there's no hard and fast number, but again, as the case numbers come down, if the numbers in your community are extremely low, and the people who are not vaccinated are adhering to the things they should be doing, I would imagine it would be safe to actually do that, to gather in public, keeping in mind that those activities, again, if you're fully vaccinated, it's not a problem. But remember, activities such as singing, shouting, yelling, those things can actually spread COVID. But it's more actually for the people who are not vaccinated versus the people who are fully vaccinated.
Hello, thank you for coming. As I was paying attention to your slide presentation, Dr. White, I saw that you addressed breastfeeding as well as pregnancy. But as a woman of childbearing age, has there been any studies conducted that show any impact of the vaccine on fertility?
They continue to monitor adverse events from the vaccine. This is actually one of the closely monitored pharmaceuticals that there has been in like ever. So at this point, there has been no data indicating that there is risk for infertility or any effects on fertility at this time.
I was just going to add also that the American College of Gynecology, they've actually studied this along with the CDC, and they said it is determined that it is safe for pregnant women to get the vaccine. And it protects not only the mother, but these vaccines also cross the placenta, and they will protect the child as well, too.
Hello. This question is directed at Dr. White as well. Looking at the slides and comparing the 2 shots versus the 1 shot, and we have the 90-something% effectiveness versus the 60%. If I'm going and getting that 1 shot, Johnson & Johnson shot, and it's only protected me 60%, then why should I get it?
So that 66% is efficacy against contracting the virus. When they studied these vaccines, they also looked at the effectiveness against hospitalization and death from severe disease. And all 3 products are upwards of 90% or better in protecting you against hospitalization and death. So even if you did have a breakthrough infection after getting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, it's going to be mild. You're not going to end up in the hospital or worse. And I will also add that, the logistics of getting the mRNA vaccines to especially rural communities is very complicated because of the storage requirements. The Pfizer vaccine often requires dry ice for storage and an ultra cold freezer that even a lot of hospitals don't even have on hand. So that Johnson & Johnson vaccine was really a game changer in helping us get vaccine out to other communities that otherwise may not have access to some of the other products.
I agree with everything Dr. White said, and just to add, another reason you'll see differences in the percentages is because when the Pfizer and Moderna, when they were initially in the clinical trials, this was before the variants had even appeared. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine was tested against those variants early. That is partially responsible for the rates being a little bit lower. But now, we've also now, since vaccinations have started, we've gotten what we call real-world experience. And they've actually looked at the efficacy of the vaccines in real-world experience, and they all have been in the 90% effective area. Okay, so they're really all over 90%. Not only are they safe, but 90% effective in the real-world experience that we have now with people actually getting vaccinated.
I was taking a survey, and I'm almost sure it asked me, are you willing to be vaccinated annually or something like that? So is that where we're headed to, or is that too far in the future?
I think you're referring to the VA all-employee survey that just came out. It really is just gauging how willing people would be. We don't yet know if we're going to require a booster shot or an annual vaccine. They're still studying the current vaccines to make sure they're going to cover us long term and cover us against some of the newer variants. So VA was just collecting data to see how willing people might be to get it.
One more question. So knowing that veterans and people that serve in the military may be treated with different medicinal ways, so for example, getting vaccines that the public may not receive, have there been any hesitation or specific or unique reservations from the veteran population to the COVID vaccine?
So I can give a personal account of that. And so the answer is yes. My father is a veteran, and he's 70. He just turned 79 on the 2nd. Yay! And so he is very hesitant, but his hesitancy stems from a lot of things. So we're from rural Tennessee. So if you can imagine, he was born in 1942. So in 42, he enlisted in the Army in 1971, but he went in the Air Force in 1969. And so his experiences have been totally different in the military than perhaps maybe our service members currently. So he has some of that type of generational concern, including, Tuskegee experiment, Henrietta Lacks, and my father is a person that reads and researches all day long. He's retired, and so he has a lot of time. So he sends me emails all day long. And so I know that he researches, and so he's just like, you know what, you guys are vaccinated, so I'm good. I'll wait and see what happens with you all before I decide. And so, we've all coaxed him and tried, and he says, I said, when will you get the vaccine? And his answer is, I'm not. So I'm continuing to work with him, but the answer to that question is yes. But I think I'll pass the mic to Mr. Black, because I think in the Louisville VA, though, we've seen a lot of veterans be vaccinated, including those Black and brown communities. So I'll pass the mic to our director.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's what all of healthcare is working through right now is hesitancy. It has been encouraging, though. It's a both and sort of thing. We're reminded throughout this whole thing that through this whole last year and a half that a veteran is not a veteran is not a veteran. And so you can't treat one like you can't treat them all like you would treat one. And so a couple things that have been really encouraging through this, though. Out of our entire veteran community, the highest rate of vaccination is actually among our Black and African American community. So a higher percentage of that community has been vaccinated than any other community, minority, or white community as well. So something is working here. And I don't have evidence behind that, but my personal thought is it's because of people like this. That they have, our community has a trusted relationship with their clinicians, and when somebody like Dr. Fry says, I chose to get it, my director coaxed me a little bit, but I got it, then others are willing to do that. The other really encouraging point is over 90% of our staff have received it. And we have 30% of our staff are veterans. And so that has been an act of love out of our veteran employee community. And I think that, when we have, if I'm doing the math, over 200 veterans that work here that have gone out and gotten received the vaccine, those 200 people are going out and telling their veteran friends and family, you should too. And I think that has really helped. And so it really comes down to trust. And I think the better we can build trusting relationships, which really is what this night is about, is not just building trust around a vaccine, but a trust with a community and a hospital, the more likely we are to be able to keep having success with this vaccine and anything that is to come as well. So great question. Thank you for asking that. Any other questions? Okay. Well, with that, I'm just going to bring it to a wrap tonight. I want to thank everybody for joining us. If we could, can we have a round of applause for our panelists? This has been they are three outstanding individuals that we have. And I just thank everybody for joining us online as well. Really appreciate you. Please share this post. Please make sure that we get it out to the rest of the veteran community and their caregivers. And we look forward to future partnerships. Pastor Finley, we're looking forward to partnering with you even more to serve this community. And we thank you all for joining us tonight. God bless.